What a pleasure to be here and to see many friends. And so it's a special treat. This is my second day on the job, and so I want to... I wasn't sure if I would be reliable to be here, so I'm not on the program, but I'm delighted to see friends and to have the chance to be here. You are about to hear from an extraordinary team of leaders. I want you to know that you are going to hear from two of the greatest Air Force people you'll ever hear from. Air Force officers, and they are general, okay, not brigadier general, not major general, not lieutenant general, but General Maryanne Miller, who runs the Air Mobility Command. So what's the Air Mobility Command? You all probably know that, dead to rights, right? The Air Mobility Command is like the UPS of the skies. This is also, however, not just the UPS of the skies. They don't just deliver packages. They're also the fuel tankers of the skies. So they're the flying gas stations. But they are also the passenger carrier for the United States Air Force. And they fly hospitals. So they are also the flying hospitals. The person who runs that entire Air Mobility Command, all of those airlift resources, is General Maryanne Miller, who you will be hearing from this morning. You will also be hearing from an extraordinary leader, the first woman test pilot for the F-35. Now, what's an F-35? She's flown A-10s, she's flown F-16s, and now she's flying the F-35 as a test pilot. The test pilots are the ones who not only have the hand-eye coordination to be able to fly these super sophisticated, stealthy, the latest of and the greatest of our fighter aircraft, but she also has to observe the characteristics of that aircraft in flight and be able to evaluate and make recommendations for things anomalies, things that it does a little differently, or quirks that it has, so she can advise and change and save lives by making sure that anomalies are corrected and perfected. Before flying this F-35, the first woman F-35 test pilot, she flew F-16s, the fighter of great fighters, and before that, A-10s, often referred to as tank killers. If you're on the ground, your best friend is probably an A-10. So an A-10 is an attack. They are ground aircraft, fighter aircraft, or ground attack aircraft. F-16s, which are fighters, air-to-air and air-to-ground, but now F-35s, the fighters of the most sophisticated and stealthy capability. So, ladies, would you join me in welcoming the extraordinary General Maryanne Miller and Major Rachael Linetsky.
Thank you.
I didn't introduce you.
That was great. That's Madam Secretary.
So good. Look forward to seeing more of you.
So, thank you very much, everyone. And this is a real honor. And for those of you who don't know, and I know there are a lot of newcomers here, Secretary of the Air Force, Barbara Barrett, has been a core member of the most powerful women community for well over a decade. So it was such an honor to have her here. And I sat between you last night at dinner, and that was wonderful. And you came to our decision-making breakout session this morning, and I'm going to ask you a question about decision-making. But first of all, I am going to ask both of you, General Miller and Major Linetsky, how did you get here?
So I know we are short on time, so we will keep this short. So I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to Rachael. Actually, a small-town girl, grew up in Hilliard, Ohio, went to High State University, full athletic scholarship, one of 6 kids, big Catholic family. Parents couldn't afford to send us, so my sister and I both got athletic scholarships, so that was a very good thing. Then I went off to pilot training. I was the 4th year of women to go through training. We couldn't fly fighters back then, which was 30 years ago. We could only fly the heavies. So I got pulled back to be an instructor, and I trained guys how to fly for 4 years, and then went on to fly the heavies. Spent 7 years on the active duty. They said, hey, you're on a path to get promoted early and go all the way to the top. And I said, no, I'm on a path to go my way, right? So I really jumped out of the active, and I went to go fly float planes for Washington State Department of Fisheries. After getting my first check of $17,000 a year, I thought, bad move. Let's go back into the active, or let's go back into the Air Force. I went back into the reserve full time. So I've spent 38 years in our Air Force, 36 of those full time. Had an excursion to run a restaurant, own and run a restaurant for 5 years, because as a reservist, you can take time off of the full time and do part time. So I've flown float planes, I've owned a restaurant, which is absolutely fabulous. So I get your life, not only this life, but I get your life. And it's a pleasure being here. So, and thank you for what you do. You're an inspiration. Thank you.
Wonderful. Major Linetsky, what's your story?
Well, first off, I wanted to thank Fortune, Most Powerful Women, Ms. Sellers, General Miller, for the invitation to speak with you today, and to Secretary Barrett for the kind remarks. I grew up in Wisconsin, went to school at the University of Minnesota, and earned my commission through the Reserve Officer Training Corps. From there, I was fortunate enough to attend pilot training and was selected to fly the A-10 Warthog, as Secretary Barrett spoke with. I flew 3 operational assignments in that aircraft before going to test pilot school, and out of there was assigned as an F-16 developmental test pilot. Last year, I had the opportunity to join the F-35 Enterprise and had the opportunity to execute developmental test fielding advanced technologies for that aircraft.
So Secretary Barrett just described the F-35 as the most sophisticated plane that described the F-35. What is that?
Yes, ma'am. So the F-35 is our newest 5th generation fighter aircraft. And what makes the F-35 unique is that we have a number of different sensors where independently develop and obtain a fair amount of information for the pilot, for the operator. But the great thing about the F-35 is a capability we refer to as fusion. So the ability to take information from multiple sources and derive that into a total battle space awareness for what's going on, allowing our operators and our pilots the information in a timely and easily digestible manner so that they can execute their job safely.
General Miller, I want to drill down into your career a little bit more, and that was a phenomenal summary of your life in a minute. Kudos to you. When you decided that you want to take your own career path, and you went to the Washington State Department of Fisheries, explain to me what you were doing there.
So flying amphibious float planes. So the Havilland Beaver, it's amphibious, so we'd show up at the hangar and we'd take off, and I'd fly scientists up and down the estuaries and rivers within Washington State, and we'd do salmon counts. So they had to do salmon counts. So I'd take the airplane, get it up on its side, and they'd count the salmon. The first time I showed up, they came with Dramamine patches all over their face, right? And they said, the guy that flies us all the time, he gets us sick every time. I go, you guys, take the patches off. This is gonna be great. Never got him sick. You know, it's all in the technique, right? So we'd go catch the illegal gooey duckers. We'd have to go after those guys who we'd set stakes on the sides of the river, and they would harvest. They had to harvest with inside. When they went out the stakes, we landed. We'd pull up beside the boat, get their diver up, and take them to jail. So it was really a lot of policing on, you know, from the air on the water.
And then tell them where your restaurant was.
Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. So we were.
And what was the name of it?
So it was Our Place Restaurant and Garden Patio, because my business partner and I couldn't think of a name, and we were within 2 weeks of opening, and we had to make a sign, and we're like, well, this is our place, so let's just call it Our Place. Right? So, yeah.
So General Miller, Major Linetsky is the first female test pilot of the most sophisticated fighter plane, the F-35. General Miller has several firsts. General Miller is the first reserve officer, as Secretary Barrett said, male or female, to become a 4-star general. She is also the first military pilot of any gender to become a 4-star general, correct?
First female pilot.
First female pilot, okay, yes. First female pilot to become a general?
Become a 4-star.
A 4-star general. And General Miller is the only female four-star general in America today among how many men?
Oh, I would say roughly 30 total.
4 stars? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Okay.
Of every service. Right.
Kudos to you. So I think the most powerful women here with us today would love to hear a little bit more about what exactly you do. So General Miller, you actually manage Air Force One, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
That's power.
I do the airlift. I manage the airlift for the entire world, as Secretary Barrett had said. We do aeromedical evacuation for the entire world. We do air refueling for the entire world. So a fighter does not go anywhere. A bomber does not go anywhere. Big airplanes don't go anywhere if they need to go more than 8 hours without a tanker to give them gas in the air. And I also run the en route structure for the entire global mobility system. So every country we land, I run those operations. And then we also support the Air Force. Every blue and white airplane out there that the Air Force has, we fly the president, the vice president, and all the congressional members and the cabinet members. So we support them.
And how involved are you when wounded soldiers or deceased soldiers come back from combat?
Yeah, Fox News just did 3 weeks ago a story of a wounded soldier who got critically wounded outside the wire, so outside the base, outside the wire. So we were able to, they were able to get him care right away, bring him to Bagram, and there was a line of people, you probably saw it, maybe you saw it in the Fox News, there was a line of airmen to give him, he needed 26 gallons of blood to get him back. So he lost an arm and a leg, and en route bringing him back, it was a 8,000-mile journey. It was a 19-hour flight. It was 2 air refuelings, one on the other side of the Atlantic and one on this side of the Atlantic. And we took him all the way from Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan all the way to San Antonio. And he's alive. He's alive.
And what about when humanitarian crises happen, natural disasters, whatever? What is your role?
Right, we're the wings of hope. So we call the gray tails wings of hope to our enemies. We're the wings of strength to our adversaries, or to our friends, we're the wings of hope. So any humanitarian disaster around the world, you will see C-17s and C-5s and C-130s and all the aircraft of Air Mobility Command supporting that and bringing hope to devastation.
Major Linetsky, what makes a good test pilot?
Developmental tests specifically, our focus really is on risk management in decision making. We will attempt to mitigate risk as best as possible, but it's our responsibility as we go and evaluate the capabilities of these new platforms to ensure that they are going to meet the needs of the customer, and to ensure then that the customer has the confidence in the system that they know they can go out and do their job and execute their mission. With that, I think it's the analytical process, the scientific method, if you will.
You're an engineer.
Yes, ma'am. Of approaching a problem. And there's many of speakers last night and again this morning that talked about, the importance of timely and effective decision making. And I really think that's where not just a test pilot, because I'm just one small part of the total team. We have a variety of engineers, both on the developmental side as well as on the execution side, that work with us daily to solve these challenges. But overall, I would say risk management and decision making is critical to gathering that data that we need to ensure we meet the needs of our customer.
Who has a question? No? Okay. Okay, we have 2 up here. Mm-hmm.
Susan Podlegar, for both of you, what are the biggest obstacles or challenges that you faced as you continued your career?
Honestly, for me, I think it's balance. and I bet I speak to everyone in this room when I say that. My faith is critically important to me, and I spend a lot of time in that. So to do the job that I do now, as I was growing up as a general officer, I could balance. When I got in this position, I thought, wow, how am I going to continue to be able to do what I want to do in that area? And by grace, it's good. It's very good. Thank you.
I would definitely say building your team, and through effective mentorship, both on a peer, superior, or subordinate level. The importance of taking that time, that extra few seconds out of your day to stop by and ask someone and engage someone and talk with them and get them to understand where you're coming from or the needs of your customers or vice versa. Ask them what they want to do. I think Ms. Sellers yesterday evening spoke of the mentorship opportunities are going to be available through Fortune. I think that's an excellent way to solve those types of challenges.
We have just less than a minute left. Can you share, each of you, a brief piece of leadership advice that you tell young people?
Humility is the most important thing you can learn as a leader. It's all about others. It's not about yourself.
Flying is the great equalizer.
Words to live by. Thank you, General Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you, Major WIniecki. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Really, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah.